Much for this invitation to take part in this meeting. Okay, that's good, is it? Thank you. And congratulations on your 10th anniversary. A lot of the forefront of work, I think, against bullying and interventions is taking place in Europe, and I think you're doing a great job bringing together the best practice in European countries. I think there's about a dozen different countries represented here, actually, which is great news. So congratulations on that, too. Now, how effective are these interventions against bullying? A meta-analysis found these results here, reducing bullying by around 19 to 20%, victimization by 15 to 16, and a rather similar finding from another review after that as well. Okay, thanks. Is that better like that? Okay. Now, it's worth saying some programs have larger success rates, even up to 40%, but the average, as you can see here, is around about 15-20% reduction, which is worthwhile, but it's limited. So most programs have some success, but rather limited. I think it's a real challenge to us to see if we can sort of increase this figure of 15-20% more towards the 40-50% that some programs manage to achieve. This data is from HBSC. I think the previous speaker mentioned some of this. I couldn't see his slide, I'm afraid, but this data from the World Health Organization suggests there's some decrease in school bullying over the last 20 years, both in being bullied and bullied others. Not in every country, but in some countries. Oh, okay. Right. Thank you. Now, I wanted to focus on this diagram here. Is this okay? You can hear me all right? This diagram, great. This is from Bronson Benner. It's called an ecological perspective. A number of social scientists have used this to think about the possible predictors of getting involved and the risk factors of being involved. And I'm going to be careful how I stand here. But in the centre we have the individual, their personality. For example, if I've got a hot-tempered personality, if I'm easy to take offence, I might be more likely to be a bully. If I'm timid, I might be more likely to be victimised. Then we've got the immediate surround of peers, family and school. Your sort of immediate social environment, really, in school and family. Then we've got the wider system around, the mass media we've just heard from in society, and then this outermost circle will be the societal situation. What's it like in the society that you're in? Is it a tolerant society? Is it a prejudiced society? Does it have laws about bullying and so on? Psychologists love this centre one. Psychologists love looking at personality of bullies and victims. Sociologists, by contrast, are much more interested in this outer section, the impact of the wider society. This will be relevant if we come to look at definitions of bullying in the very final section, which I'm due to talk to you about, because sociologists want to emphasise, even within the definition of bullying, this sort of impact of the society you live in. Psychologists are more interested in the sort of characteristics of the individual. So we'll come to that later, perhaps. Well, we've heard quite a bit about several of these factors. We heard about from Paul here about the impact of family factors very persuasively. We've heard about the impact of the mass media. What I'm going to say now is about the peer group and the school, particularly. Teachers, if you talk to teachers, they're very fond of talking about family factors. Yes, so-and-so is a bully in my class. He has a difficult time at home, there's violence, and so forth. Probably true, but it can be a danger if teachers focus so much on family factors, I think, and neglect the peer group and the school factors, which is what I want to talk about in my last few minutes. So, yeah, let's skip this. So, yeah, so families we've heard about, media we've heard about, the peer group and bullying now. And there's my email, by the way, if anyone wants to contact me, and I'll make a make it clear why I put that there in a moment, but p.smith@gold.ac.uk. Now, one way of one way of involving peers productively against bullying is what are called peer support schemes. Selected peers are trained to be peer supporters. So a peer supporter is someone who's going to help in some way, help the victim or help prevent bullying. In primary schools, they can be befrienders or activity leaders. In secondary schools, they might support vulnerable pupils directly, mentoring and counselling. And here you see the children with the yellow T-shirts. They're peer supporters. This is their way of showing, I'm a peer supporter in this school. And crucial, really, here is the role of defenders. A defender is someone, as I said, who's going to help the victim or perhaps challenge the bullying child. Now, this in the top here, I've mentioned a paper by Chen et al. The Defending Behaviour Scale for Cyberbullying for Adolescents. Chen et al. It's a few years ago. If you can't get hold of it, you can email me, which is why I put my email there, and I can send it to you because I have it on file, so it's easy to send to you. p.smith@gold.ac.uk. This defending scale, which they've validated it, and it's got 24 items, and it's got 5 factors. Now, here are the 4 factors. 4 factors. One is comforting and accompanying the victim. So, for example, I send messages to the victim to discourage him or her, to encourage him or her. Remember, this is cyberbullying. So if someone's been a victim of cyberbullying, you send supportive messages to them. Or second one, reporting to an authority figure. I reported the cyberbullying to the webmaster. Or third one, counter-attacking and retaliating against the bully. I sent a message verbally abusing the bully to stop the cyberbullying behaviour. Or figuring out how to solve the problem. I help cyberbully pupils respond to untrue comments from others. So 4 different ways there of being a defender. And these can be sort of discussed in the curriculum. And if you like, certain pupils could be trained, if you like, in which are the most effective of these strategies to use and in which circumstances to use them. I was chatting to Paul earlier, who has worked with the Kiva program. Let me just, so I'll go back in a minute. The Kiva program in Finland, it's a pity we haven't had Finland here, but they've developed the Kiva program with Christina Salmivalli, which plays a large part of that is training selected peers to be defenders. And it's best if these defenders are of high status in the peer group, rather obviously. If you're of high status in the peer group, you're less likely to be retaliated against, more likely to be respected in what you do. I was chatting to Paul earlier, and he's corresponded with Christina about this. Do you want to say 1 or 2 words about what she found with the Kiva project and defenders?
Oh, you're very good. Okay, okay. Thanks for just very briefly. Okay, very briefly. So I would have been involved with the European Commission in critiquing the Kiva peer challenger part. Okay, the challenging part. So we're hugely supportive of the peer support part. But the concern would be that for entrenched bully perpetrators, that if you're putting the child to challenge the entrenched bullying perpetrator, that you're putting that child at risk. And that if a school is encouraging a child to challenge and take on the bullying perpetrator, that's legally negligent, because it's foreseeable that harm can come to that child. So the image, the vision, motivational understanding of Kiva around is that it's based on social group pressure. But there are many other motivations why somebody maybe wants to be a bullying perpetrator. So traumatic, entrenched bullying perpetrators, there's, I think, a big cautionary note around trying to challenge those. So support the victim, yes. Actively take on the perpetrator is a risk.
Yeah, thank you. That was really interesting talking to you about that. What you're saying is looking at these 4 different strategies. Comforting the victim is fine. Reporting to an authority figure is fine. But counter-attacking and retaliating against the bully, that's much more questionable for, well, obvious reasons, really. And then finally, figuring out how to solve the problem. That's fine too, isn't it? Yeah. But the Kiva project has used training defenders quite a lot, and it's been quite a successful program too. So training defenders, so you might take a scenario where, you know, I attack someone, and what are you going to do? Are you going to challenge me? Are you going to help the victim and so on? What will you do? You're the peer group, as it were. And that's, or you could have virtual scenarios. In the Kiva project, they actually use virtual scenarios, and these scenarios show bullying situations, and what would you do in this situation? Okay. Now, what you would do, it's relevant, of course, for whether someone actually starts bullying someone else, depending on are they going to get support from the peer group or not, but also for school climate. I mean, suppose I challenge someone. We're friends, aren't we? But this is just pretend, right? I don't like the way you spoke to me earlier. You were a bit insulting about some of my work. You must watch it, huh? Okay? Now, this isn't necessarily bullying, but it's certainly aggressive anyway. You're the peer group. I'm going to think, what are you going to do? Are you going to support me? Are you going to support Paul? You're probably going to support him, but so probably I'm not going to take it any further. But just suppose, you know, you were quite sympathetic to me and Paul wasn't very popular. What are you going to do if I start punching you? What are you going to do? Any of those things I showed you? Now, that will help set not only whether I'm likely to take it further or not, one thing, but also the conference climate, if you like, the equivalent of the class climate, the conference climate. What kind of conference is this? Does it have people who are going to stand up for someone who's being attacked without a good reason? Are you going to call Costas and say, Costas, come along and help here, please, because there's a fight going on? I'm sure you would, actually. But, you know, we're talking here about the school situation, and that's relevant for the school climate. How safe and happy pupils feel in school. The quality of pupil-pupil relationships and the quality of teacher-pupil relationships. And these are really important. And this book here by Ashton and Benveniste shows it really nicely, I think. And someone else mentioned Dewey Cornell's work in the US. They found that an authoritative school climate is the best for reducing bullying. Now, authoritative, it's like parenting, authoritative parenting really too. High disciplinary and academic expectations for students. So you do expect good behavior and good results, but you also listen to students as well. They're involved in the decision-making and the consultations. So teachers and other school staff members interact with students in a respectful, caring and helpful manner. So it's this combination of having expectations and clear rules for good behavior, but also listening and caring. Now, this implies helping teachers, I think, because in that Bronfenbrenner model now, teachers have this central role here in terms of trying to inculcate a good school climate and good feelings of school belonging, and they may need support in this. Now, earlier you heard from the Anti-Bullying Alliance. Mary Mayer there gave a presentation. The Anti-Bullying Alliance, which I'm involved in now as chair, actually, has put together 5 aims for the next, if you like, decade, in the UK anyway. And one of them is that teachers should have initial teacher training about bullying. There should be clear modules and training for teachers who are being trained as teachers, what bullying is, how to tell it apart from aggression and other forms of behavior, what forms it takes, what are the reasons for bullying, and what can we do about it? What kind of interventions can you use, and which ones seem to work? Pretty basic knowledge, really, which we've got a lot of basic knowledge now, because we've been doing this research for a period of 30, 40 years. We know a lot now. So one of the aims we're going to try and put towards the UK government is there should be initial teacher training on this kind of material, and also continuing professional development training as well. And not just teachers in the classroom sense, but all school staff, support staff, those who are supervising the playground behaviour, perhaps even those who are involved in the transport of pupils to and from school, school buses and so on. They need to know about these sorts of things. So that's one of our key aims there. as I've said here, yeah. And not just the classroom teachers, but the non-teaching staff as well, as I've mentioned here. Lunchtime supervisors, because in the UK, teachers don't supervise the lunchtime break. It's left to local people in the school community who are not particularly trained in this. Then bus drivers to and from school. I don't know what it's like in Greece, but in the UK, many pupils are coming on school buses. And they're spending, half an hour, 40, 50 minutes perhaps on the school bus. I did that, in fact. And it's a mixture of pupils of different ages. There's no teacher on the bus. The only adult is the bus driver. But you can't really pester the bus driver for things. They've got to drive the bus safely. But at least they ought to know, I think, what bullying is, what to look out for, and who to report it to if it's happening. And someone called Paul Vodden did a series of reports, actually. He interviewed school bus drivers about this. So if you're interested, there's a good series of his reports freely available on that website there. Well, still thinking of challenges. Remember the earlier slide I showed? It's difficult to get bullying down to zero. You can reduce it, not too hard, I would say, to make some reductions, but there seems to be this hard core of pupils who might be either involved in bullying others or susceptible to being bullied. So some therapeutic work might be called for here in this case. So therapeutic work with parents or carers and young people with problems, either bullying behaviours or severe victimisation. And a couple of studies here with some quite promising results. In the first case, working with girls who are bullying a lot, and the second case with victims, children who are being bullied by peers a great deal. And I'll just mention Red Balloon as well. This is a UK project, as far as I know. I don't think it's anything like this in Greece. I don't know, you can tell me. But it provides sheltered schooling in England. And there are 5 centres, plus an online version as well. And these are for children who can't cope with mainstream school due to very severe victimisation. These are children being really badly bullied in school. They're trying to avoid school, in fact. They're not going to come to school now. It's so bad. It's affecting their mental health and well-being. But what Red Balloon does is provide a sheltered schooling environment where they can come, together with other children who probably have had somewhat similar experiences, with staff who know what the situation is. There's a high staff-to-student ratio. And the aim is to combine some academic schooling, so they can keep up with that, with therapeutic work as well. Obviously sort of counselling work to boost their self-esteem and so forth. The aim being that they can return to mainline schooling or further education in due course. Might take some months, might even take 2 or 3 years. But on the whole, they've been rather successful at doing that. They've certainly helped some very severely victimised and disturbed children. Red Balloon. Again, you'll find them on the website too. Have I got any time left, or should I finish? We need to finish. Okay, I think I can skip this then. Yeah, one more thing. This is an opportunity or challenge, just the last slide, I think. I do believe that we need to combine quantitative and qualitative studies, especially when we're looking at interventions to try and reduce bullying. Quantitative studies are giving questionnaires, like that defending questionnaire I mentioned earlier, have you been bullied at school, and so on. Qualitative studies will be more interviews, focus groups, in-depth kind of things to find out the particular experience of those pupils involved in the intervention, say. And really, I think you need the qualitative methods to understand what's going on, to understand the processes. Suppose you're doing an intervention in a school, and we saw some examples in the questionnaires before and afterwards. Okay, you've got your quantitative measures, you need them. Is the intervention having an effect? If it is having an effect, or if it isn't, why? Why is it working, or why is it not working? And that's where the interviews and the focus groups, the qualitative methods, are really going to help. I think that's increasingly recognised. And I would say we should expect mixed methods like this in most studies. And if they're not using mixed methods, why not? That is probably... Oh, yes, using young people as researchers. That's been mentioned already, and I fully endorse that. I think that's really important. There we go.